The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
Ashley Buzzard, set free after being accused of false imprisonment, is still the central figure in a heartbreaking mystery stretching from California to Nebraska. As investigators search for her missing 9-year-old daughter, Melody, Ashley's strange cross-country rental car trip and her refusal to cooperate have only deepened suspicion. Now, with pressure mounting, everyone is wondering, where is Melody? And why doesn't her own mother show any concern? Meanwhile, in Indiana, the man accused of firing his gun through his locked front door and killing a cleaning woman makes his first court appearance and gets his trial date. What is justice in this extremely sad and tragic case? But first, a mother recorded on video disciplining her 12-year-old gets charged with child abuse after the video goes viral. She swatted her son 20 times with a belt and yanked his hair. This happening in the state of Alabama, which allows parents to physically discipline their children. Tonight we're asking, where is the line between discipline and abuse? I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you aboard. I think a lot of you are parents. I'm a parent, right? Parenting is tough. It's not the easiest job, but we sign up for it. It's our choice, right? We're the ones who decide to bring life into this world, which is great, but then you've got a responsibility, and that responsibility is 24/7 for the rest of your life, right? Even when your children grow up, you're still a parent. You are still a parent 24/7 for the rest of your life. An awesome responsibility, so rewarding, but very difficult because there's different issues at different times. You know, babies need caring all the time. And, you know, sometimes children act up. And how do you handle that as a parent? How do you keep your child on the right path? If they're doing things they shouldn't do, or they're not holding up their end of their responsibilities, they're not maturing. How do you do that? How do you make those choices? A lot of it has to do with the nature of the child, the nature of the parent. The age of the child is a huge deal in all of this. Now, when I was a kid, when I was, in my teens probably, my mother, if anyone was acting up, and I'm not talking about when we were tiny, I'm talking about when we were a little bit older, she would threaten the use of the wooden spoon. The same wooden spoon that she would use to stir that tomato sauce or gravy on Sundays was the same spoon that would bring us all that joy, was also the threat of punishment. Now, she never ever used it, but she's like, I'm gonna get the spoon, or sometimes she would actually hold the spoon in her hand, and at that moment, you snapped back and you did what you were supposed to do, right? But she never had to use it. But if she did use it, or if some parent uses some form of physical discipline, it really depends upon your perspective as to what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, what is discipline, and what is child abuse. And I think we live in a day and an age now where our children are much more educated on this. From school, from television, from TV shows, wherever. They get the knowledge, and they know that, and I think they've been empowered to speak up for themselves. If they can. Obviously, some children that are severely abused cannot. But where is that line? It's kind of like a gray area. How do we find it? Who defines it? Well, it's also, there are a lot of regional differences here in our country, in the way people of certain parts of the country look at it and other parts of the country. And then some states have actually gone into the statutes and codified what's appropriate, what's inappropriate when it comes to parents and adults physically disciplining their children. And that's our first story. It involves this woman. Her name's Nicole Staples. This is from the New York Post. Take a look at her mugshot. What did she do? Well, she used a belt to swat her 12-year-old, to discipline him or abuse him, depending upon your perspective. She swatted him 20 times and then grabbed his hair and tossed him to the side. It was recorded on video. The video went viral. Folks at the school saw the video because the child, who's 12 years old, has a 12-year-old twin, and another child living in the house also has a 24-year-old sibling who made sure everyone was aware of it, including Cottage Hill Christian Academy, because this mother is also a teacher, a former teacher of the year at the Cottage Hill Christian Academy. Well, once the video was out there, law enforcement did their part. They arrested her for child abuse, and Cottage Hill released this statement. On November 19th, 2025, school leadership was made aware of concerns involving the off-campus conduct of an elementary teacher toward her minor child at her personal residence. Although the incident did not occur on school property, the nature of the information required immediate administrative action. Following the findings of law enforcement, which determined that the teacher had engaged in improper conduct unrelated to her school responsibility, an arrest was made, and Cottage Hill Christian Academy terminated her employment in accordance with institutional policy. Okay, is it that simple? Now, I'm going to show you the video in a minute. You're going to see it. And I'm warning you, for a lot of people, it's like, I don't want to see this video. But I'm going to show it to you. I'll show it to you in just a few seconds, but I want you to know something else. This is all taking place in Alabama, okay? Look at the screen. Got a little piece of law here from Alabama. The use of force, and I'm just going to read the parts applicable to a parent. The use of force upon another person is justified under any of the following circumstances. A parent responsible for the care and supervision of a minor, that's this case, may use reasonable and appropriate physical force upon the minor to the extent that he reasonably believes it necessary to maintain discipline. You are allowed to discipline your children with physical force in Alabama or to promote the welfare of the minor, meaning you think this is going to help your kid out. So Alabama permits it, but it needs to be reasonable and appropriate. Reasonable and appropriate according to who? Well, according to the school, it's whatever the police think. Now, the police don't think it's appropriate. We'll see if a jury or a judge thinks it's appropriate. But first, I want to bring in our think tank to see if they think it's appropriate. Joining us tonight, criminal defense attorney Josh Colesrud, along with former law enforcement officer and host of Strong Enough podcast, Claudia King, and entertainment host, Holland Reed. Welcome to everyone. So I'm going to play this for you. It's about 30 seconds worth of it. I'm going to play it for you guys so you can watch it. The folks at home will be watching it. And then I want your impressions of it. Does it fit lawful and appropriate discipline for a child, right? Because that's the standard. The standard is what's reasonable and appropriate to maintain discipline. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, everyone's ready. Let's roll the tape.
Do what you're supposed to do. Do you understand me? Help! 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 Everybody else is saying, please make sure your a while ago. There's she run off down at the neighbor's house. Hello.
And that was posted on X by Police Patrol. All right, I'll let you guys go. Josh, get us started.
Well, you know, if I was defending her, I would say that this is a lot harder of a case to prove than how it looks. So in Alabama, you have to show that the actions were willful, that the mother intended to be cruel, to give this type of harm. Not that she went overboard, for example. And the statute says what is reasonable under the circumstances. And there are scenarios, albeit, extreme scenarios that I can think of where maybe it was appropriate. If you guys have ever seen the movie The Good Son, where Macaulay Culkin, a 10-year-old, pushes a mannequin over a freeway pass onto a freeway, and it causes a bunch of cars to crash. If a parent saw that, they may think that it was reasonable under their circumstances. And what this video doesn't show is what happened before the beating took place. And again, I'm not saying that the beating was justified, but you have to prove that it was willful, not intentional, not knowing, not reckless, but that she intended to be cruel and malicious and to harm her son, that it had nothing to do with discipline. It would have been easier if the prosecution charged her with assault, because assault in Alabama can be proved by a lesser standard.
I agree with you, Josh. I think there's more to the story. We have to know more about the circumstances, and just watching the video, it does look bad, but we don't know what the circumstances surrounding it are. And I feel like the school has gone a little too far. It seems like people now, when they get charged with a crime, their employers are immediately terminating them. And if we're in a country where it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, I'm not saying they should continue to let her teach during this time, but why aren't we just putting her on an unpaid suspension or something like that instead, while we figure out the facts of the case?
I will completely agree, but then also add in, yes, we don't know what happened. And as a mother, you make that discernment. Did he steal something? Did he put his hands on me first? Did he put his hands on somebody else? Even Claudia mentioned we saw that 9-year-old who raped a 5-year-old. So there are so many scenarios here. As a mother, I got lucky with a kid that I never had to spank. I popped him one time. He learned his lesson. Now, when he got to 14 years old, he bucked up on me multiple times, and hands had to be placed on him because he was 6'4". So I think your discernment as a mother, thank goodness I didn't live in Alabama, and I would have never taken it that far. I'd have never had to, but you don't know what the kid did. Was he a terror, like Josh was saying, McCulkin in that movie? So it's really tricky here, and I think the whole story needs to be played out.
All right, let me sprinkle some things, because listening to it, it seems like she is saying to him that you're not doing your chores. Everybody else in the house, meaning I guess the other children in the house, everybody's doing their chores. You're not doing your chores. You're out of line, okay? So I'll put that there. And what I also want to dive into here is, what is it that makes this so bad? And again, I'm trying to understand it, why we are reacting the way we're reacting, because for how many years was it very normal for a parent to take off a belt and swat their child on the behind? Right? That's what's happening here. Is it because it's 22 times? Is it because she's yelling at him and screaming profanities? What is it about the video that shocks us to the point that this is a crime?
Well, number one, it's taken out of context. It's only giving us a small snippet of what happened, and it's only the most egregious part. And even if everything that you just said is true, Vinnie, you can't say at this point that the mother just wasn't going overboard, because just going overboard isn't enough to prove child abuse in Alabama, because it has to be willful, meaning that it can't really have any connection to the actual transgression.
Well, she's screaming that you're not doing your chores. So that's obviously what has put her, at least from my perspective, that's what's kind of put her over the edge here, is you got a child who's not listening. A 12-year-old child who's not listening. The age of the child, does that make it worse? Is 12 too young for this? Is 12, what is it? Because everyone's having a similar response to this, saying, oh, this is awful, this is rotten. This is wrong. All right, so there's that part of it, that is it wrong, right? And if it's wrong, why is it wrong? the illegal part of it, Josh, I get what you're saying, but my guess is that a jury's going to look at the punishment. They're not going to worry about why she's doing it. They're going to look at it and say, is that beating too much or is it not enough, right? I mean, a judge may legally make a decision, but a jury's just going to look at it and say, okay, is this right or is this wrong?
I have to say something about this because
is we have become a society where you can't punish your children anymore. You don't have that ability anymore because kids run out and say, my mom touched me, she hit me, and kids are getting taken away. And it just seems like in a lot of other states, this ability to parent your children in the way that you determine is appropriate has been taken away from you. And I know that you said, Vinnie, it was because he didn't do his chores. That's what happened today. What happened yesterday and the day before and the day before? Like, we don't know what this mom lives through every single day with this child. So we don't know what has happened prior to this to bring her to this point in the situation.
Go ahead, Holland.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to get my word in edgewise. I'm just going to disagree because when I'm watching it, I'm looking at trauma. You don't know if there's something mentally wrong with this kid, if he has any disabilities. Maybe he has ADHD or what have you. I got my butt whooped in a culture where it was okay. That did not mean it was right. I needed ADHD medication versus a whooping, maybe, for not doing my chores. I think there's an overreach with this mother, and I'm looking at a trauma response. I'm looking at something that's later going to have a trauma response in the future. I'm not looking at maybe just a frustrated mother. I'm looking at a mother that is taking a very visceral approach instead of maybe getting the help that the child needs.
Yeah, here's my problem with the whole thing. Like, Alabama puts it in their law of what you can do without really telling you what you can do and what's legal and what's illegal. If Alabama's going to do that, clean up your law. Make it very specific, right? You make it specific for teachers, make it specific for parents. If you're going to tell them it's okay and then you're going to charge them with crimes, right? Like, for me, if it's a crime, it's a crime, but make it much clearer under the law so every parent knows you can't do this. Because my guess is she thought she could do that, I think. I don't know. Anyway, Think Tank staying with us. We've got a lot to get to. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the Indiana homeowner who shot his gun through the door, made his first appearance in court after killing a woman who was just going there with her husband to clean a home. Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, an 18-year-old's vacation turns into a chilling mystery. Anna Kepner found dead under a bed aboard a Carnival cruise ship. Now the FBI is investigating and reports of a possible cause of death. What really happened on the horizon? Tonight, we investigate.
The Court TV podcast will return.
I never thought it was a shot, but I realized when my wife took 2 steps back, she looked like she'd been hit in the head. She fell into my arms, and I saw the blood. It went everywhere.
We have determined that Kurt Anderson's actions do not fall within the legal protections provided by the Indiana Stand Your Ground law.
My clients just want justice for Maria. They just want to see justice be done. And however that comes and whatever form that comes in, they are willing to be patient with the process.
Everybody is just like, this is a tragedy and something needs to happen. I mean, you have your people that say it was justified and there's that castle doctrine law, and I get it, but this does not seem like that fits the bill.
Maria Perez de Velasquez was just showing up to do work, to clean a house. Think about this. She was there at like 6:45 with her husband. They had a cleaning business. These folks are working hard, getting up before dawn to go to work, to make it, to take care of their kids, make some money. Goes to the house. I guess it was supposed to be abandoned, so they're jiggling around with the keys, and she's talking with her husband about the keys, and she's looking for it. And the next thing you know, the homeowner inside fires a gun through the door. It strikes Maria in the head, and she dies in her husband's arms in front of this house. It's a heartbreaking story. It's a tragedy, but prosecutors say it's a crime. And the accused killer, Kurt Anderson, arriving at court. We've got some images for you tonight. That's the man behind the door. Like, why do you fire the gun? What was going to happen? Had anyone even attempted to enter your home, right? There may be some defense that he'll be able to put up at a trial. They always do, and especially in a situation like this. But just taking away the legalities of it for just a minute, what are you thinking in that moment? Are you so scared of what? Of what? No one's banging on the door. No one's screaming. No one is brandishing a weapon on the other side of the door. You've got a window there. There's a window on the top. There's a window on the side. Firing first without understanding the nature of the situation. He presumed the worst right from the get-go. And now he's locked up. He's destroyed one family. There's children that are going to grow up without a mom now. And he's looking at spending the rest of his life in prison. Like, what's the thought process in all of that? Let's bring back in our think tank. Still with us, Josh Colesrud, Claudia King, Holland Reed. That's the question I have here, Claudia. Before we get to the legalities, legal, not like, I'm trying to understand the mentality of the homeowner on the other side of the door. How do you go from zero to firing a shot? Like, I don't get it.
I think we have to look at prior behavior or prior instances on this individual. You know, has he been robbed before? Has his house been broken into before? Has he been the victim of a prior traumatic act? If so, then his reasonable thought process of how to protect himself might be a little different than somebody else's. However, if there are all these windows and he can clearly see who it is and they've got, you know, brooms and cleaners in their hands, then we're talking about a totally different scenario here that seems completely unreasonable.
I'm going to just jump in and say, in the era of Ring cameras, this makes no sense to me. And if he did have any prior break-ins, then why don't you have the security in place? It comes with the culture, in my opinion. The policing, you're the judge, you're the jury, because you have the privilege of having a gun that gives you some type of power over someone innocent. It's a culture that has gotten out of hand, the stand your ground culture, that I'm in charge culture because I own a gun. And quite frankly, I'm sick of it, and most people are, and I hope that she does get justice for this.
You know, in your home, fear doesn't arrive politely. You know, it arrives in a bang, a flash. And you don't look at the law books to see if what you're doing is right. You look at and you feel for that instinct. And that instinct sometimes can either save you or it can end up in a situation like this. And at the end of the day, this is going to end up in a jury's hands, and they're going to have to ask themselves, was this reasonable under the circumstances? You know, if he reasonably believed that somebody was breaking and entering into his home, was he justified? Did he have the justified amount of fear that's legally permissible to stand your ground? And you know, I completely respect what Holland says, and that is certainly one side of the coin. But the other is that right now, you know, guns and stand your ground laws are on the books. And so that's what we have to deal with here. And what this says is, you know, jury, put yourselves in this person's position. Was he reasonable? And it's going to be up to them to decide that.
And, you know, protecting your home, your family, owning a gun, part of the Constitution. I understand all that. He's living in a nice neighborhood, brand new home. And I want to follow up with what Holland's saying, and I want to follow up with you, Claudia, your former law enforcement. The concern about safety is real, like it is. Security cameras these days are so affordable and so good. And you know, everyone's in a different circumstance. This guy obviously is in a very good circumstance. This is a beautiful home. It was built in like 2021 in a beautiful neighborhood. This is someone who could afford the very inexpensive little camera on the front, a little camera on the side. You have a back door, a little camera there, an alarm system, 911. He could have everything. And I'm looking at it, not about this case, but about how do you keep yourself out of this position, out of feeling like you need to fire the weapon. Like, there's got to be one step before that. And if you have the opportunity, I think you can. Claudia, wrap us up on this.
Yeah, I agree with you in that regard. And there are so many easy ways with cameras now. I mean, outside of my house, there's like 14 cameras and then 2 inside. So it's easy to do that, and you can look at them on your phone. So legally, maybe he's got a case, but I agree with you. There were things he could have done before that, especially if he has been a trauma victim, to better protect himself and to feel more secure in his own home.
And everyone's better off at the end of the day, right? Everyone. He's better off, and obviously Maria and her family as well. All right, stick around. Coming up next, charges dropped against Ashley Buzzard, but still saying nothing about her daughter Melody.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Ashley, can you say if Melody is safe at this time?
There she is, Ashley Buzzard, at the courthouse for a hearing involving charges of falsely imprisoning a friend or acquaintance of hers, and the bottom line, just not answering the question. Like, where's Melody, your 9-year-old daughter? And it's amazing that someone can be the sole parent of a child. There's an active missing persons investigation. There's no allegation or information that she was abducted or ran away or anything from the mother, and the mother's just walking around. Like, it's getting stranger and stranger to see this dynamic. Crystal Bermudez from Scripps News Group, who is the reporter who's been covering this story from the beginning, has the latest from that hearing and the aftermath.
Ashley Buzzard no longer facing felony false imprisonment charges. I'm Crystal Bermudez, your Lompoc community reporter, and I was in the courtroom Thursday morning when the alleged victim's case took the stand. The judge ultimately deciding that there wasn't enough evidence to move forward. Much of Thursday's hearing was centered around testimony from the alleged victim, Tyler Brewer, and an approximately 6-minute-long audio recording Buzzard took during their conversation the evening of November 6th. A freelance paralegal and legal document assistant, Brewer told the court he first met Ashley through a friend back in 2014 and reached out to her recently offering his help. He testified that he visited Buzzard approximately 5 times between November 1st and 6th, stating the final meeting at her home, he felt Buzzard's demeanor, body language, and tone of voice prevented him from leaving. He shared additional concerns about a box cutter being located on a nearby table. Both sides played portions of the audio recording in court. While it was played for everyone to hear, we were not allowed to film any portion of the hearing. The prosecution argued the video documented the moment Brewer said he tried to leave her home. Brewer tells me he didn't know he was being recorded. I spoke with him about it over the phone following Thursday's hearing.
Now I understand why she was saying things and doing things the way she was doing it, because she was being recorded.
The defense argued the recording did not support Brewer's earlier statements, including that Buzzard prevented him from walking out of the home.
She had the tone, demeanor, and the audio recording of the conversation between the two.
I caught up with Buzzard leaving the courthouse during a break in her hearing.
Ashley, can you give any comments into Tyler's testimony today and pleading not guilty?
She did not respond. A key moment Thursday came when Detective Thomas Brownlee testified that statements Brewer made immediately after the November 6th incident didn't align with the recording he found on Buzzard's phone following her arrest or the statement Brewer later posted online.
Tyler Brewer told him on November 6th and how it reflected on the November 6th, 2025 Ashley recording, they did not align. And the impeachment testimony that Detective Brownlee provided may have factored in to the judge's ruling in this case.
In a statement to KSBY, the Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office wrote in part, after the initial report to law enforcement and the filing of the complaint, further investigation yielded additional evidence that was contradictory to the information that was initially provided to detectives. That evidence was brought out at the hearing and inconsistencies were examined by both sides. With the judge ruling there was not sufficient evidence in the case to uphold the felony charge against Buzzard, attention outside the courtroom shifted back to a separate investigation involving Buzzard, the disappearance of her 9-year-old daughter, Melody.
Where's Melody?
This is 43 days that your child has been missing.
Family members' hope now depends on finding Melody.
Please tell us where the baby's at. You know, is she okay? Where is she?
The judge's ruling means her GPS monitor will be removed. As far as her case involving her missing 9-year-old daughter, the investigation remains active and no new further updates have been released. In Lompoc, Crystal Bermudez, KSBY News.
So here we are on another Friday. And like, the only thing that's happened is that now these charges are dropped and she's still walking around, walking into a courthouse, out of a courthouse, people asking questions, saying nothing, doing nothing. She has an attorney. He's saying nothing about the 9-year-old. Holland, this is getting, yes, it's frustrating on the one hand, but it seems like, why? Like, how we're all just sitting here watching and it's as if nothing happened.
I feel like now, Vinnie, she's finally maybe living up to her name. She's flying above everybody else. How is she getting away with this? She's looking down on everybody and living up to, you know, I plead the fifth, and she is owning that. And I do not understand how she is not in jail and no one is, I'm not saying they're not questioning her, but no one is keeping her close by. I think they're doing what we said before. They're going to let her hang herself until we can get real answers. But another Friday night, and this little girl is nowhere to be found, and there still are zero answers.
You know, Josh.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, I started the program tonight talking about being a parent, right? It's sort of a theme throughout this hour. But like the child doesn't make the choice to come into the world. Like the parent says, okay, I'm bringing you to this world, right? That's our responsibility. I don't understand how someone can just, and all right, you've got mental health issues. She knows, though, she knows enough between right and wrong. She knew enough to record the man inside the house and use that recording to set herself free. So I'm beyond whatever mental health issues she has. I'm beyond that because this little girl, someone's not caring for her. She could be anywhere, and if something bad did happen to her, she's doing nothing to respect that young girl and her remains. If that's where we are in all this, how can we be here week after week after week, Josh? Nothing is happening.
Well, unfortunately, Vinnie, this is looking more and more like a no-body homicide. You know, we haven't heard talk yet about declaring the child dead yet, but at some point, prosecutors are going to have to give serious consideration in doing that. So what is a no-body homicide? It's exactly what it sounds like. There is no body. However, the prosecutors will rely on circumstantial evidence that the mother in this case was responsible for the death through circumstantial evidence. And they will point to things like forcing her child to wear a wig, taking different routes home across different states, and her general weird and abnormal behavior. Now, right now, it's not enough. If prosecutors had enough, they would have charged her. But at some point, they're going to have to take, again, a hard look at a no-body homicide, unfortunately.
I agree with you, Josh, and I think that the more time goes on, the worse and worse that it looks. And I'm guessing that the DA's office, law enforcement, were hoping that she would stay either in jail or under supervision with this false imprisonment charge, because they are sifting through so much evidence right now. When you think about digital evidence on phones and laptops and things like that, it takes so long to go through that. And thinking about the hundreds of miles that she traveled and looking at cameras on and off the interstate along those routes, it's going to take a really, really long time to try to figure out where Melody is, because we're getting no help from the mother, and it's absolutely ridiculous at this point.
So she needs an advocate. This little girl needs an advocate. But the problem is there's no father who has any legal standing to do anything here, because he passed away in a tragic motorcycle accident when she was 6 months old. So she's got one and only legal guardian. But I'm thinking somehow, some way, someone's got to figure out how to get a judge to appoint a guardian for this little girl and have that lawyer litigate and compel something to happen here. But we'll continue to follow it, obviously. Great job, Josh Colesrud, Claudia King, Holland Reed. Great to see you. Thank you so much. Enjoyed the weekend. All right, folks. When we come back, something else you need to know, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, she was a straight-A student with dreams of the Navy, but Anna Kepner's last day at sea became a tragedy. Her body was discovered hidden in her cruise ship cabin, and federal agents believe her 16-year-old stepbrother may have played a role. Could the answer to this mystery lie within her own blended family? Tonight, we investigate.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. Oh, it's the season finale of Court TV's Hits original series, Interview with a Killer. I can't believe another season's coming to a conclusion. Amazing stuff. This finale, the code killer, Benjamin Delgadillo, tattoo party spinned into a nightmare of torture, violence, and murder. Take a look, folks.
Every day before I brush my teeth, pick my pistol up. That pistol is mandatory. Especially the life I was living, it was mandatory.
The killer was a hardened drug dealer and lifelong gang member. You also called yourself Agtown's Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
And what did you mean by that?
I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, too.
The victim was a struggling young man with a drug addiction who ran afoul of his dealer.
That's nice-ass word.
The punishment began with torture.
I started tattooing his back.
And blacking it out.
Now I'm mad.
And ended with cold-blooded murder. The switch is flipped.
Yeah, so now there's no way to unflip it.
From the vicious world of street gangs and drugs, a killer talks for the first time. There's a code to that life, right? How you pay respect, command respect.
Mm-hmm. If they see any type of weakness in you, you're not gonna last long, it's over with.
And opens a new window into a brutal crime that took a young man's life.
Is that the gun you used to kill him?
So for about a few $100s and some disrespect, you're willing to torture, torment him.
For future references, keep it 100. This won't happen to you.
Ultimately, murder a man for acting like a junkie when you the one turned him into a junkie. How do you account for that?
What an intense show. Joining me now is the host of Interview with the Killer, David Scott. David, great to see you. I can't believe another season under the belts, but that just means we're gonna have another one coming up. All right, so
that's right.
Let's start here. This is the first time that this killer has ever spoken about what happened?
That's right. He took a plea deal, so there was no trial, and he's never told his side of the story. And so there are some answers in this interview that is well beyond what the public knowledge was before.
I noticed in that clip, it was almost as if you were like, I mean, you're confrontational in these interviews. Like, these are killers.
Yeah. I mean, this is an especially sad story because the victim was the son of Kurdish refugees who managed to save the family from persecution in Iraq and get resettled in the United States. But they could not save their young son from the scourge of methamphetamine and the street code that governs life in that underworld. And so it is a window into the ruthless world of street gangs and crime, and that's a story that's playing out in every American city all the time.
Yeah, and a way to at least understand the mindset is so different. Now, he talked about this thing called the code. Can you explain that?
Right. So this is a guy, Benjamin Delgadillo, is still a young man, but he spent most of his life as a member of the Five Deuces gang, which is a set of the Crips. Since he was 11 years old, he's been running around the streets with a pistol in one hand and drugs in the other, selling them. And so when one of his customers steals from him or attempts to steal from him, there have to be consequences based on this code, right? He can't be the drug dealer who gets punked by a junkie. And so that's how they end up in this at this tattoo party with Delgadillo basically torturing the victim with the tattoo gun, scraping it across his back, blacking out a tattoo that the victim had on his back. And then, what's really especially fascinating about this case is you see how violence begets worse violence. It's a kind of momentum of violence that occurs that starts with this torture. And then he could have stopped there, but no, then he calls in some drug dealer colleagues, and the torture escalates to abduction and ultimately to murder.
I said it's intense. David Scott, congratulations on another season. Great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Vinny.
All right, folks, be sure to tune in. The finale, Interview with the Killer, Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Court TV, as David Scott confronts the code killer. You don't want to miss it. All right, take a look at your screens. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. This is Ayanna Rochelle Gardner, missing out of Thornton, West Virginia, 14 years old. 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or the Prescott County Sheriff's Office in West Virginia. Don't go anywhere. We've got another hour of live true crime. And please don't forget to hug the kids.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.